have our first Dungeon Crawl Classics Open tournament in many years, and it's going awesome. So thanks to everybody who played. This year we didn't have a whole lot of slots because we were kind of a little rusty. We haven't run one in many years. We're sort of getting back in the swing of things, but it's gone terrific. We've worked out all the kinks, and we'll be back next year to run it again with all of our slots. But it's gone awesome, and thanks to all the judges, thanks to Mark and Harley and all the writers who make it happen, and thanks to all the players because it's gone great. Don't forget to come to the raffle at the booth Sunday at 2 o'clock. We'll be raffling off original art as well as some of the collector's editions and things like that. So if you played in an event or bought something at the booth, you should have a raffle ticket. Hopefully you checked out the news sections at the booth. We have the Appendix in bookstore, which is, personally, I think it's awesome. If you liked it, let us know. Maybe we can do something like that in the future. We have the Bazaar of the Bazaar with all the sort of one-off Kickstarter items that were left over from various Kickstarters in years past. We have all the vintage pulp magazines, the tons of DCC third-party products, the game science dice, the new impact dice, all the new releases. Let us know what you like and what you didn't like, and we'll try to adapt to that in the future. Now here's a quick recap of projects that have already been launched or in various states of completion. Mr. Wampler and his Mutant Crawl Classics has gone amazing. We've gotten tons of great feedback on MCC. We now have the final draft out. People found a couple more typos, which we'll fix right after the con. And it'll go to the printer in about probably about 2 weeks. As soon as we're back, recovered, and have made those edits. Once it's at the printer, we'll give you guys the ETA and what to expect it, as well as the modules. The modules are amazing. They're turning out great. You guys have seen most of the covers, but nothing more than that. But you'll see the PDFs of those soon. They're all in various states of either layout, proofreading, or in some cases completely done. But it's coming along great. The DCC Lankmar, so obviously the Kickstarter is complete and went amazing, so where's Mike? Good job, Michael Curtis. Hey. So everybody on that did an awesome job. Right now we're in various stages of commissioning art and just starting on the layout. Something pretty exciting is, as you guys know, we like to go back to some of the original sources. And I haven't worked a lot with Janelle Jaquays in the past, but she has agreed to do some art for the Lankmar project. So we got in the first 2 pieces from her, and they turned out awesome. And for those of you who back the zero-level scratch-off project, that is at the printer, and that's just going to be a lot of fun. There's nobody in the right mind would ever fund scratch-offs as a business initiative, but I appreciate you guys supporting it because it's fun and it's the kind of stuff I like to do. Kind of like these spinner buttons, like that is not a sound investment, but it sure is. Thank you guys. You got it. So that's launch project, and at the end, if we have time, you guys can ask questions. We've got to get through a lot, so I'm just going to keep on jumping through. Now, some of the stuff that we've announced but haven't actually launched yet. What we call the B1, B2 project, and I see, where's Chris? I saw Chris. There's Chris Doyle, who converted some classic modules to 5e. Good job, Chris. And there's Tim, who edited it. Good job, Chris. So this is a licensed product, which means we have to collaborate with Wizards of the Coast on the final design. But this is the latest cover design. The official title is Into the Borderlands. The series, because it is a series, there will be more. The series is titled Original Adventures Reincarnated, and this is #1 in the series. There's going to be changes to this. We are going back and forth with them on font choices and placement and so on, and that's how it goes when you have a partner on a project. But the cover looks awesome. You can see all the design elements reflected here. I'm sure you get all the references. I had a big discussion with them on this yellow stripe, which I think is critical. Yes, exactly. Yellow stripe. We're debating that, so I'm really hoping to keep the yellow stripe. But overall, it's looking great, and it's coming along really good. The layout is, actually all the art is done, all the maps are done, all the conversions are done, all the editing is done. And we faced a choice. We could have rushed it and probably made Gen Con, but we decided not to rush it and instead just make sure we make everything perfect. And I'm thinking probably the end of the year at this rate, but it's moving along pretty good. So then, the annual, which I like to talk about annually. That's what it's all about. So, I think some of you have seen this cover design. We showed it somewhere before. But believe it or not, it's actually coming along. Most of the content's done, it's edited. We'll be starting layout soon.
Next week.
Next week. Some of the art's coming in. For those of you who've been by the booth, we have art folios for many of the contributors to the line. Doug, of course, has his own section at the booth. Brad McDevitt, Stephen Poe, William McCausland, and Peter Mullen all have art folios at the booth. I just wanted to, let you guys in on a secret. If you take Peter Mullen's art folio and spread it out, it's an 11 by 17 image, which will be one of the end sheets on the annual.
Awesome.
So it is actually coming along very, very slowly, but it is coming along. We'll continue talking about it annually for the next 5 years. I think it actually will come out probably early next year. So that's the annual. The next DCC reprint. So, you know, it's a lot of fun working on these products. One of the fun parts is when they go to the second printing, which is when we get to add new content in the back, do a fresh edit, sometimes think about new art. And one of the things we've done lately is add new cover art by new artists, just to add a new perspective, and frankly, it gives me a chance to work with a new artist on a new project, which is a lot of fun. So Peter Mullen did the cover to Jewels of the Carnifex, and Doug Kovacs's original cover was awesome. Not to take anything away, but Peter's is also awesome. Yeah. I know many of you have met Brad and Stefan and Will and some of the, you know, the Canadian cons. It was rumored that Peter Mullen was simply, you know, a nom de plume by one of the other artists. No one had ever actually met him, but he does exist, and he's back there in the corner in the hat. I've talked to them. Will Nicholson is also right there. Stefan's right there. Brad's right there.
And Doug will be in to greet us all shortly.
Any minute now. But this is the next cover. Yes, this is Intrigue of the Court of Chaos by Russ Nicholson. Some of you guys know Russ Nicholson. Well, then I'll reveal the one behind it. I'll lift it up. The stippler. Russ is the guy behind the Feed Folio way back when. Did that cover, has done a couple other interior, or a lot of interior pieces for us, but this is the first color cover he's done for Goodman Games, which I think is awesome. So that'll be out. It's actually going to the printer shortly. It'll be out as we sell out of the first printing of Intrigue of the Court of Chaos. And there'll be others after that. If any of you guys are a fan of, anybody here a fan of Warren Publishing from the 1970s? Eerie, creepy, all that kind of stuff? Oh, yeah. Many of those, and even if now you know what I'm talking about, the Warren was well known in the style, they are over there too. Yes. The style of art they did, I love it. It's in the DCC style, sort of horror theme, but you know, true brushwork, it's wonderful. I've been talking to several of their artists about doing some of the alternate covers for some of the upcoming ones. So, you know, no news yet, but as those come along, they should be awesome. So that's update on stuff we've launched and stuff we've announced but not launched. Now to talk to you about some new products coming out soon. So you guys know we do a Halloween adventure every year, or have for the last couple of years. This year we got John Hook to write it. Those of you who know John Hook know he's done a lot of our Age of Cthulhu product. And he has he's great at Lovecraft lore. He not only talks about, you know, Lovecraft stuff can become kind of hackneyed, you know, oh, yet another tentacle monster. But John does an amazing job of sort of taking the horror aspects of it and refreshing it. So this is Peter's cover for the Halloween module this year, Shadow Under Devil's Reef by John. So you'll be able to buy that obviously in October, but it turned out terrific. The cover has this great creepy vibe, and it's a great adventure. So look for that to come soon. Next thing is for the Metamorphosis Alpha fans. So you guys hopefully got Epsilon City, hopefully you liked it. Jim Ward has turned in his next project, which is called Doom on the Warden. Doom on the Warden, as he describes it, is a tomb of horrors in space. So we're starting to work on the manuscript. It's still probably about a year out before we, you know, announce anything and do a launch or anything, but there will be more Metamorphosis Alpha. And it's awesome. Instead of a, you know, a big city supplement, it's a shorter volume, but it's a creepy, sort of horror-themed adventure on a derelict spaceship floating through space. So it's pretty cool. And now, is Howard Andrew Jones in the house? Come on up, Howard. Everybody, this is Howard. Hi, Howard. So, have a seat. How's it going?
Goes good.
Good.
I love the gong.
Okay, good. Gongs are cool, man. That's the governing philosophy of Goodman Games. We make enough money. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Howard. Some of you may have read one of his stories that was in last year's Gen Con program guide. He writes fiction. He writes really good fiction. And many of you know that DCC is grounded in the works of Appendix N. If you came by the booth, you saw the Appendix N bookstore. You've heard various ones of us talk about this. You've heard about the library license, the advanced license, the other license we haven't yet announced. All these sort of cool things that we have related to Appendix N. Howard is a huge fan of Appendix N, and he's played a lot of role-playing games, and a couple years ago he gave me a copy of one of his books at the booth. It took me like 3 years to read it. I got a huge stack. I finally worked through it. It was awesome, really strong Appendix N vibe. I asked him to do some fiction with the program guide, and I found out some other amazing things about Howard. He was the former managing editor of Blackgate magazine and Flashing Swords Easy. He's the editor of the 8-volume collection of the swashbuckling historical writer Harold Lamb. He's the author of 4 gaming novels and the Beer and Nassim historical series, which is one of the ones I read. And he's a role player since grade school in the 70s who grew up reading appendix and writers. So I wanted to show you something that Howard and I have been working on. And it is called Tales from the Magician's Skull. So for those of you who are fans of Appendix N, what's interesting to me is the story of DCC sort of came from Appendix N, but I think there's an opportunity to go back and give the world a chance to read fiction that is in that same voice as Appendix N. One of the challenges I personally have with a lot of the fiction out there right now is it's too self-conscious. You know, you read fiction and they describe a dwarf as a dwarf and a fighter as a fighter because they think in terms of what I'll call mainline fantasy and how it's become sort of structured in the way that D&D presents it. But I think one of the charms of Appendix N is that lack of self-awareness of fantasy as a genre and the sort of lack of awareness of RPGs as a thing, and this sort of original voice of swords and sorcery. Howard shared that vision, and we are going to be working on a fiction magazine. It's almost all fiction. There's a very small part of the back by Terry Olson where we asked the writers to produce stuff that was unrelated to gaming, just amazing swords and sorcery fiction. And then at the end, Terry added stats for some of the monsters or locations or other things that they talked about. So I was going to ask Howard some questions and tell you guys about the magazine, and if we have time at the end, we'll answer some questions. And I should show you the second issue's cover too. This is issue 1. This cover is by Jim Pavlik, who I'm very fond of, and this is by Diesel, who many of you know, illustrated actually Keep on the Borderlands and many other things back in the classic D&D era. So Howard, what about this project excited you the most?
Oh wow, well, like everything, it's a crazy dream, but I always wanted to edit for one of the old sword sorcery or weird tales or magazines in that vein. And I mean, I grew up, like you said, reading the Appendix N vibe. I actually wrote down a little list from the back of the Dungeons Master's Guide, and that's what, and went to the library and the used bookstore and the bookstore to try and find the authors, and that blew the lid off my imagination and turned me into a writer.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about the stories that appear in this issue.
Oh wow. Well, I wanted to find people that were in touch with the right vibe, that were going to create new fiction that was rooted in the same old rich heritage, right? So went to some writers who appeared in Black Gate. First one was James Egg. He was nominated for a World Fantasy Award for his stories of Morlock the Maker, and he's got sort of a Jack Vance crossed with Roger Zelazny vibe. He has a series of novels about Morlock, but he's probably even more famous for the stuff that launched his career with the Morlock stories in Black Gate. And then we have Chris Wilrich, who's been writing for years about this thief duo called Gaunt and Bone. He has this really beautiful literary style with mad imagination. His story has this huge floating tower encased in a block of ice that's chasing a ship from the Arctic, and they have to stop the tower. It's an awesome story, and it would make an awesome role-playing adventure as well. I could go on and on. Oh, there's
Just go on and on.
Yeah. So there's John Chris Hocking. He wrote what I think is the best non-Robert E. Howard Conan novel. It's called Conan the Emerald Lotus. And it's a surprising story about a guy who's sort of like a secret agent, bounty hunter type for a government organization, sort of like the government's secret enforcer. And it's full of some surprises. And then, let's see, there's Clint Werner. How many of you have read some of the Warhammer fiction? All right. So you may know what some of the other people don't, that Warhammer has been producing some of the greatest sword and sorcery out there that has the old school vibe, but people don't hear about it because, it's tie-in fiction, so they don't read it. But Clint Werner is one of my favorites, and he wrote an omnibus about this bounty hunter called Brunner. Those are fantastic. So I wanted to get him to write something new for us for Tales from the Magician's Skull. And he delivered a nice, creepy little horror story with an adventure vibe. Now that's another thing, of course, is that some of the stories are pure adventure with the horror vibe that you expect, but we try to have some horror stories with a little bit of adventure vibe, so it's not just all the same flavor.
And a lot of the guys writing it are actually gamers. Which I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but Clint actually did some writing for Goodman Games. We had an X-Crawl fiction contest 4 or 5 years ago, and he actually won that contest. So it's kind of funny how a lot of these guys have circled back, and I find out about their past, like Howard's, who involves a whole lot of gaming.
I think there's my generation and probably younger, most of the writers I went into grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. Some of them grew up with 3.0 if they're younger than me, but a lot of us were playing advanced D&D and Traveler and what have you, Gamma World.
Yeah. So what's your favorite Appendix N author or series, or what are your
Oh,
inspirations?
well, you know, the only stuff I could find when I went out there at the used bookstore or whatever was Roger Zelazny's Chronicles of the Emperor, which remains one of my favorites, and Fritz Leiber's Swords Against Death, which I loved the Lockmarch stuff. And unfortunately, I didn't read Robert E. Howard until much later. He's now one of my very favorite writers, but at the time I was looking, I couldn't find anything that was the original Robert E. Howard. But I think those guys, of course, Jack Vance, I love Jack Vance. Clark Ashton Smith is good if I don't read too much in a row. It's kind of like really rich chocolate, right? He's got that really dense prose style. I like Lovecraft in small doses. Lee Brackett. Lee Brackett's another one of my favorites for Sword and Planet stuff.
Yeah.
I read her over and over.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as the editor, do you have an idea of where you want to steer the future issues?
Well, you can hear how excited I am about what we're talking about here. I just want to keep delivering more and more of the same, with the same sword and sorcery and adventure and horrific thrills, hopefully a couple of times a year for years to come.
So guys, this will launch initially as a Kickstarter. We're going to commit to 2 issues up front, you know, assuming the Kickstarter funds and so on. If there's interest, we'll go further. But it's basically awesome fiction with some sort of DC stuff at the back to back it up. But it's really about just providing awesome stories. That, I mean, when I read these, you know, you walk away with your mind buzzing, like, oh, I could totally do that in my game, you know. And then the art's amazing. I, of course, talked to some artists. So Doug Kovacs has illustrated some of these. If you've been at the booth and seen the appendix in bookstores, so when I was setting that stuff out, there's some of it that I could not bear to sell. So I pulled a couple things back to keep. But one of those was, I had these actual pulp magazines from the 30s where there's some original work by Abraham Merritt. And what's awesome, so I've always wondered how Gygax made that transition from fiction to D&D, right? And there's plenty of books written on this. But I found this, one of the serialized versions of the Moonpool back, because a lot of these books were originally published as serials in the magazines as short stories. And it actually had a map in it, a couple maps in it, that had been drawn to illustrate the Moonpool. And I've read many versions of the story, and I've never seen that map before. So somewhere along the way, it disappeared from the publications. But I saw this map, and suddenly I understood how you can make the transition from reading fiction to thinking about how do I explore this place. You know, it's very obvious in that version of it. So some of the stories actually have maps, not quite gaming maps. You know, they're more sort of like it's almost like DCC has illustrated gaming maps. This goes one step further, like truly just illustrated maps. But to sort of help you get into the story more. We talked to, obviously, Doug, Stefan has a piece in there, Brad has an amazing piece in there. I talked to some of the artists that I've always loved that I haven't had the chance to work with before, so that includes Janelle Jaquays, also contributed. If you're a fan of Warhammer 40,000 and grew up back in the day loving Rogue Trader and the Realms of Chaos book, the first one, I finally had a chance to work with Ian Miller. So Ian Miller contributed a full-page piece. There's some amazing stuff. The story, like when you flip through it, I mean, you can see the art. Diesel's piece, and like this piece right here just gave me nightmares for days. Like, it's amazing. So I think when you flip through it, you'll be floored, and then when you read it, you'll be further floored. So the Kickstarter for that will be out in a month or two, and then we'll hopefully print a couple issues, and if there's sufficient interest, we'll maybe keep doing it. So
yeah, I'm excited about it. I could blather on and on, but I better.
Thanks a lot, Alex.
Let you guys.
Thank you. Cool. So it's going to be awesome. I want to talk about a couple other things before we're done. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Judges Guild. We have Mr. Bob Bledsoe Jr. here, so come on up, Bob. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Glad to be here.
So hopefully you guys have had a chance to come by the booth. We completed our work on the first volume of the Judges Guild Deluxe Collector's Edition. And you know, we wanted to make a bigger book and we did. So it's an awesome book.
And it's hotcakes, it's moving.
It's crazy.
And all of the reviews I've gotten, no one said anything bad about it except maybe that it was too big. But they want it in softbound, they want it smaller, but they love the big layout, the prints of the old newsletters, they love it.
And you guys know Judges Guild has a pretty extensive library of amazing work published from the dawn of the gaming industry. So I don't have to tell you that. I wanted to tell you about Volume 2 that we're going to start work on soon, which is going to be the work of Janelle Jaquays. So you guys know Dark Tower, Caverns of Thracia, Book of Treasure Maps, the Dungeoneer magazine, all those amazing things, and that's what we're going to do for Volume 2.
Well, the Dungeoneer is where we managed to acquire all that talent. You come from up in the Chicago area. My dad loved The Dungeoneer, and it was published by Chuck Anshell in Chicago. And he had access to writers like Brian Hennon and Robert Bingham, some of the names that you may not know unless you know the early Guild material. But he had access to Jack Ways and others that were really top-notch. And so when my dad offered to buy and take over Dungeoneer, he hired the owner, Chuck Anshell, to come down and work for us as editor on our journal and some of our publications. At that time, it kind of put the others, they were like, who do we go to now? Is it going to continue? And so Janelle Jackways came under our umbrella along with a lot of people. So it was really, really good for my dad, but it was really lucky for us because Janelle could do both great writing and yet great art at the same time. And so, did you bring what I brought you today? I mean, the little
Oh, it's in my
booklet.
backpack.
I'm sorry.
That's in my backpack. Let me grab it.
But no, you don't have to do it. But
No, it's cool. This is the cool thing about hanging out with
there's-
Bob. Like, he just hands you stuff, and you're like, my
I'm
God,
sorry,
this is a historical relic.
I'm a scatterbrain, but I think things, and I sometimes I throw things at him unexpectedly.
So,
He's
and
very
he's just
gracious.
like, oh yeah, check this out. And it's like, you know, original art, or... Do you want to show it to him?
And, well, what this was this was this was Jack Way's first year with us, 1977, 78, going into 78. And this was a distributors booklet that went just to a handful, maybe a dozen distributors. It was guidelines for distributorship and how to, and what your discounts would be if you carried so many of our product. And it has a full catalog of what we had and carried. But for example, Janelle at the time was working her way through college in art school, and she submitted so much little clip art that not all of it made it to journals or product or Pegasus. She was just cranking out all this artwork all the time, and it was really creative stuff. And my dad loved it, of course, and he would throw it into things like this that the general public just never saw it. Hopefully, with Volume 2, we can include a lot of that art that just it hasn't been seen in years and years, and only by a few people. So it's one of those tidbits that it has to make it out some way, and this is the way to do it. For real fans of Jack Ways and our material from that age, she had so much to do with other artists like Kevin Simbita at the time. Really influenced our image. When we started making modules, we really didn't know quite what we were doing. And so my dad would say to me, Bob, can you do a cover for this? And so, yeah, I'll sit and draw. And because I was the boss's son, I was 13, it became the cover of Madagascar, or it became the cover of Teagle. Those were my earliest. And I went on to do like 16 different covers over the years, and I got a little better. But I was nothing compared to artists like Jack Ways and Kevin Simbita and Aaron Orozco and these other artists that were really good. But what I was going to say was in 78, 79, that influx of the Dungeoneer talent from up north coming down to Decatur, many of them moved down to work for us. We doubled our staff instantly. And we were just hit with a lot of great talent that Chuck Anshell had put together. And we were very fortunate. And it changed the image of our product line greatly. But I can't say enough because it did a lot for us.
And it's amazing work. I mean, you guys know Thracia, Dark Tower, and it's often the basis of campaigns that I've heard many people running. We'll once again have access to the issues of the Judges Guild Journal.
Yes.
They've never been reprinted before. The ones that originally shipped to those issues will include, the goal is to include the early issues of Dungeoneer magazine as well. And then material like this.
Stuff that, the rarer, the more priority we're going to give it. We want you guys to see the stuff that others really haven't had a chance to see. And Janelle is gracious enough to come on board with us and help us along with it. So it's going to be complete and it's going to be good. I'm proud of the Volume 1 already. So I know this is just going to blow them away because our products in the early days, let's face it, my dad hired friends, my dad hired his kids. We did what we could because we were on a shoestring and we loved what we did, but we were just flying by wire. With Janelle and some pros coming in, and they were pros. I mean, it really changed the guild, but we were always very happy about that. It gave us our boom. Our real boom was 78 to 80, and we had a lot of authors come in after the credits we got from Dark Tower and Thracia. It actually drew better authors to us because it brought us up a notch. But I'm just really happy about it. It's going to be cool.
It's going to be really cool. It takes a long time to do these books, as you may have noticed. We're probably at least a year before we launch the Kickstarter. There's a lot of scanning work to do. Restoring the journals takes a lot of work because they're newsprint and tend to fall apart and things like that. And then, a lot of it is going through the historical vault that Bob has access to and that Janelle has access to, and she sent me a list of all the things she'd like to include. And it is stuff like this, like distributor terms that a handful of distributors ever saw, but it's illustrated with, not just the original Jim Clay's art, which blew my mind, but there's Frazetta art in here too, and these guys had access to this amazing talent pool.
We were very fortunate.
Yeah.
It was a combination of the time and the access to the right people, and so
it's going to be awesome.
And you kind of have that too, and you're experiencing your own boom now.
Could be.
More and more people are being drawn to you. I see it from having seen it before. It's cool.
Thanks. We'll see how this works out.
I'm just glad to be a part of it too. I'm seeing it happen again. 30 years later.
I mean, but basically my business strategy is to rip off what you guys did.
It's great.
You guys did a
I
great
love
job. It's like, we should.
You're not ripping anybody off. You've done me a solid all along. You're an honest businessman and a great guy. So
all right, cool.
We're very happy.
Well, this will be an exciting project, and it'll take a while, but look forward to about a year or so, and then we will go from there. So, cool. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thanks again.
Yeah. So guys, I wanted to talk about two more things. First one is 5th edition. So as you guys know from Into the Borderlands, we are working on some 5th edition projects. We have 5th edition Fantasy, which is our line of 5e modules, and Into the Borderlands is officially it's from WotC with the official blessing to convert some of these modules. And what I like about 5e is what many people like about 5e, which is that it's gaining in popularity. It's sort of uniting the gaming community in a way that certain other editions didn't do. And if you look at some of the sales statistics that are out there, it's doing amazing. I think the market has changed, and so you don't get the same buzz factor from retailers that you would have gotten in the 3rd edition era, for example. But the stories are that 5e is now outsold 3rd edition by a long shot, and it's really built a huge install base, and it's switched to proving itself to be what I call the new standard for D&D, and I'm happy to support that new standard, while also supporting DCC and so on. But there's a certain audience out there that will always play 5th edition, and that's great, and we should encourage that audience because that's what pulls people into the broader pool of gaming. So something I've been thinking about recently is if you guys, I don't know how many of you guys, sort of pay attention to what's out there, but there's a lot of subscription programs these days. There's, Myth Award, and then there's RPG Crate, and then there's, the Treasure Table, and then there's several others. And I've been subscribing to some of these for the last year or so and just sort of monitoring what's out there. And they're doing a great job, and there's a great interest now in what I'll call, gaming subscription programs. And if you don't know the basic model, you basically sign up, and depending on the schedule, once a quarter, once a month, once every 2 months, you get usually a crate, they call it, but kind of a box that has a variety of content. If you subscribe to any of these, you may have seen some of the Goodman Games products that have been in a few of them over the last year. And it's a really interesting format, and I think it's a way to provide a steady stream of interesting material for the right product line. A long time ago, we used to offer a DCC subscription service back in the era of 3rd edition. It was a blessing and a curse. The blessing side was that it gave us a chance to give people sort of consistent content on a regular basis, and they knew they'd get it. The curse side was that if we wanted to do something like Castle White Rock, it's one thing to tell somebody we're going to bill you $10 every other month and you get a module. Oh, and then there's going to be a $100 charge. So what I like to do with DCC is have the room to do these sort of special projects, whether it's a Purple Planet box set or a Chain Coffee box set or a Night Bar or something like that. And it doesn't really work with a subscription program because the price and delivery schedule varies. But with 5th edition, I think there's a lot of room to do a subscription program. So I wanted to let you guys know, for those of you who are 5th edition fans, we're working on a 5th edition subscription program. It won't be launched until next year sometime. It'll be that crate format. So sign up, you'll get a box full of goodies. Obviously, there'll be a fair amount of Goodman Games stuff in there because we have the 5th edition fantasy line, which is 11 modules so far. But there's a lot of stuff that we can do. I mean, you guys know that we have the Libro license, but there's nothing in it that says DCC RPG. So we already have a 5th edition conversion of the Lake Bar Works completed. You guys know we have a license to the works of Jack Vance, but there's nothing in there that says it has to be limited to DCC RPG. So we already have a 5th edition conversion of the works of Jack Vance completed. We have a lot of 5e products in the works, and I think when you guys see this friendly neighborhood game box announced, it'll be of great interest to 5e players. So that'll be coming out next year. And there's another really fun part of this as well, 2 other fun parts. The first is, I like to be fair to retailers, and one of the problems in the past with subscription programs was that it does in a certain way detract from retailers' ability to sell things. So we will offer this through distribution as well. So retailers will be able to carry these subscription programs for their customers in the stores, or if you live in a place far away from anywhere, which Harley is familiar with, there's no game stores nearby, you can also subscribe by mail order. But the other really fun part is that, there's like I mentioned, I like to rip off Judges Guild. There's a model out there for how to run a successful subscription model. That model is Judges Guild. In order to get their early products, you subscribe to them, and they would deliver them in the mail, which is how you got the Judges Guild Journal and Dungeoneer at Times and things like that. So we've also worked out an arrangement with Bob to bring back the Dungeoneer magazine, and that will be part of this crate program. It'll be the focus will be 5th edition of the crate, so that's where we expect the focus to be. But Dungeoneer will be all about just great fantasy material. And we'll tell you more about the editor and other such things in future times, but it'll be an exciting part of this program. So I think for those of you who are interested in 5e, it'll be a chance for you to have a regular delivery model of stuff that you're interested in. And for even if there's not 5e fans here, it'll be a different kind of crate service, offering new and exciting product from us that includes some more licenses and partnerships and so on. And then I also won't forget the rest of the 5e marketplace. There's actually great stuff out there being published by other publishers for 5e. That you guys may know, I like the guys at Troller Games. They're doing 5e conversions of a lot of their modules, as well as some new content, and there's other stuff out there as well. So more details to come on that. I'll look for more info on that next year. So now I wanted to talk about one more thing. I was wondering if anybody named Steve Crompton was in the room. Steve. What's going on?
Oh, we just finished dinner in the lobby. That was great.
Did you have anything good?
The burgers are really good. Try the burgers. Really good. Excellent.
So for those of you who don't know, Steve's middle name is Grimtooth. He is the co-creator of Grimtooth, but also basically the face of Grimtooth. Metaphorically speaking. He's been the primary illustrator, creative voice, writer of Grimtooth since 82, something like that?
Yeah, but probably since the mid-90s, but I've been involved with Grimtooth since the very beginning.
Yeah.
So,
And he's
go ahead.
He's done a ton of awesome work, and many of you know we, I guess it's been about 2 years ago now, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we compiled all the existing Grimtooth Traps product. And when I was a kid, I had Grimtooth books, and it was just cool. It was a cool way to kill stuff. And anyway, I love those books, and it was fun to compile them and work with Steve, who's like an amazing wellspring of history, and just one of those guys who's like, you should spend, everybody in this room should spend 5 minutes talking to Steve. He's like one of those creative guys I've ever met. He can write, he can draw, he can edit, he can do cartography, he can do layout, he can scan Judges Guild materials. This guy has talents. But we're excited to announce a brand new Grimtooth product, which we've, I guess, talked a little bit about online so far.
Yeah.
But Grimtooth Trapsylvania, and I was thinking maybe you could just tell us a little bit about this book.
Sure. We did the Grimtooth collection, and you guys loved it. And then we did Tomb of the Warhammer, which was actually a Grimtooth DCC adventure for you guys to play in. And also we did the Museum of Death, which was another Grimtooth-related DCC project. So what we're trying to do is, we're taking Grimtooth and we're trying to expose them to all of you guys who are DCC players to give this, it's like a whole little universe you guys can start playing around in. And so those things to go really well, those projects, right? So Joseph came to me and said, well, so what else can you do? And I had all these
lot of ideas.
Whacked out ideas. And the one he liked the most was taking the locations in the Grimtooth mythos and turning them into solid places you could run a game in, do a campaign. And so some of you probably don't know who Grimtooth is, maybe. So basically he's this half-troll, invulnerable megalomaniac who rules this. He's famous for selling traps to dungeon masters across all the universes, right? So all these dungeons that have traps and stuff, he sold them the traps or the plans to the traps. And so he has his own realm, and which we created using all the stuff that is talked about. Like in the Grimtooth thing, he's got an airship. So, well, if he has an airship, then he's going to have an air hangar and a place to put the airship, and people have to work there to fix it. So my job was to try and write that and make it, you know, interesting and funny like the traps book were, but at the same time usable. You know, and he has a castle, which he's referred to in all the books. So we put a castle in, and he has underground layers where he does, you know, stuff and testing and hides things, and we put that in. And he's got a testing center, kind of like the GM testing grounds, right? So he's got a place where he tests all these weird traps. Some will have to be done outside, so we did that. And there's, he has a bratty kid sister called Grimtina, who's kind of like, you know, somebody told me something I hadn't thought of, that she is Harlequin before Harlequin existed. She's that kind of a character. So to get rid of her, he took over a school and threw her off in this school for wayward trolls. So we built the school, you know, so you've got this school, it's been burned to the ground because Grimtina arsoned it to get out of going. But it's there, it's a ruin, it's got werewolves in it, and you can explore it and look for all sorts of stuff. And then beyond that, there's a greater mystery within the Grimtooth realm that if you play deep enough, you'll find out, you know, even more, like what's really going on and who's really behind this and what is really going, you know, what's this all about. So that was the goal, was to try and create this really, the kind of wild places that you guys are already exploring in the DCC universe, but still make it be that classic, you know, Grimtooth's trap stuff, but something you guys would enjoy. So there you go, that's it in a nutshell.
And then you pulled in a lot of the original contributors.
Yes, we, you know, over the years, over 30 years, Grimtooth has been publishing books. From 1981 to 2000, or to 1992, we published stuff, and then we added some additional stuff when we did the collaboration with you. So, one of the things we talked about was how would we make that feel, to make it feel like the Grimtooth Traps books. And one of the ideas I suggested is, well, what if I can find the other artists who worked on the book and get the other editors who worked on writing the traps and stuff over the various 7 volumes to all contribute something, some location or something for the adventure. And so we managed to get almost everyone who ever worked on the traps books on a large, you know, as an editor or a writer, to contribute something. So, and including art. And some artists, Michael Von Glahn hadn't done any fantasy art in over 25 years. So we managed to get him out of retirement to do 16 Villas for us. And Liz Danforth did some portraits for us of some of the bizarre and crazy characters that live in Grimtooth's realm. And so we got her, because she actually created Grimtooth originally as a throwaway cartoon. So we've got them all together. It's like bringing the band back together, man. You know, so there you go.
And the book has a setting, it has new traps, it has critters like monster stats.
Yeah.
It has sort of location type stuff. It has NPCs. It really is. You could theoretically, if you want to take your game up to 11 and kill a lot of PCs, send them this. It's sort of an extra player location.
Yeah,
You can run a whole game there.
it really is. You can have any of your adventures lead into this realm. Think of it as, and you all know who Dr. Doom is, so think of it as a crazy, freaked out fantasy version of Dr. Doom's Latveria. And Grimtooth is like Dr. Doom. So that's kind of what you got, you know? And you can bring your characters in and run them through and have a great time doing it. And you don't really have to even know anything about Grimtooth to enjoy it. It's just this bizarre, crazy place.
And the book is being done with DCC stats.
Yes, this the team at you guys is Joseph's company. You guys got experts. There's one sitting over there in the corner. Jan is the editor. And they pulled together, so it's going to have the classic Grimtooth setup at the beginning, written with his voice. He'll be telling you what there is to see there, just like they do in the Traps books. But in the back of the book, every monster, character, and trap is going to be statted with your guys' DCC stats. So you'll be able to go back and go, oh, okay, this is blah, 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 and you'll be able to use it. So that was a genius idea on your guys' part.
the real genius was Grim Tooth.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. So cool, guys. It's gonna be awesome. Steve's been working on this for probably a year or so.
Yeah.
So it's like quite a while.
Mhm.
We're almost at the finish line, doing some final fiddly bits, and we'll probably do the Kickstarter in probably 2 to 3 months, I'd say,
Great.
when it's all done. And it's not gonna be a monster. It's not gonna be a huge book. It's gonna be probably 96 to 128 pages, but it's enough that you can have a lot of fun, run a lot of fun games, and sort of bring that Grim Tooth vibe into your game, not just as a trap here and there, but actually something you experience for a couple sessions or more before your players, well, probably before they die, before you send them back to their regular world.
Yeah, so we hope you guys give it a shot. I hope you try it, and please help us with the Kickstarter when it comes. And I want to thank you all for helping out when we did the big, collection. It was just amazing, and I look forward to doing it again with this.
Cool, awesome, thanks, Steve.
See you all later.
See you later.
Going back to dessert.
So guys, that's actually about it. I think for once we're actually ending on time. So it's about 7:45. We have about 15 minutes left in the room before somebody boots us out. Anybody want to ask any questions or anything I forgot to cover? Dieter, what you got?
When are you going to tell us what that unannounced license is?
I don't know, a while from now? Maybe Gary Con or maybe Gen Con next year. We have to get through a couple things, but we're almost there. And you had a question as well?
I was just reinforcing his question.
Okay, cool. Do you want to third that, or do you have another question?
What is the ETA on anything Dying Earth or Vance related?
Probably next year. So we have a team working on it, and I think it's going to be great. We're going to be discussing who's working on it soon, but it'll turn out great. Actually, the 5e version actually is complete, and there's been stuff in motion on that for quite a while, and the DCC version will come over. Anybody else?
I want to second what you were saying about the Tales from the Magnificent Skull, how good the stories are. They're really, really good.
That's right, because Terry read them all and
Yeah,
and
I
stats
had to read them all and
so-
stat them all,
Yeah.
and they're really, really, really good. Original, not derivative, and super fun to stat. For people like statting. I mean, yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool. Thanks. Any other questions?
I'm totally biased on this because I got to be the Warlord of the Purple Planet last year, but is there any more development on the Warlord of the Purple Planet game?
Nothing specific, but it'll come out eventually. I mean, I think games go in cycles, right? Like there was the big RPG boom around the D20 era, and then there's frankly now a board game boom and so on. And I have this funny habit of sort of missing every boom. So I'm kind of waiting for the board game boom to die down, and then I'll jump in. It's got to be old school, When board games are old school, Goodman Games will get involved. But more realistically, I want to just keep it sort of simmering and coming along. There's been some other new board game ideas that have come up recently, and so I don't have an exact ETA on it, but sooner or later. I know that's completely vague and
Other
not
board
helpful at
games,
all.
can you say any more about other projects you got, like simmering away way back there?
Not yet, but they'll come out sooner or later. Part of the process just involves, if you let stuff, the more, in my opinion, the more you think about stuff, and we have a lot of really creative guys working together, and when you give stuff time, just amazing stuff happens, and sometimes there's things you couldn't predict at all. So you just want to wait till it really feels great. I mean, Doug had a funny quote once. We were debating something, and I think I was rushing to finish a project to actually have it come out on time. And he said, if he was working on it, it would basically never come out. At least with me working on it, it does come out a little late, but at least it finally gets out. So there's that fine line between working on it until it's absolutely perfect, which means it never comes out, or at what point you sort of say, okay, fine, we're ready to release this. But we debate that on many projects as to what's the right time. And it's better to have it a little late, but really solid, I think, than on time. But
Or you could do it the way Judges Guild did, change each edition as you print them.
that works too, yeah.
Yeah, you can always make improvements.
That's true on the reprint, yeah. Anything else? Cool. Well, thanks you guys. Thanks especially to those who entered the tournament and played and died in many cases. And I think, Mark, we have to close this with a poem. And for those of you who don't know, Mark's been instrumental in the tournament, which is why he gets to be the villain. Instrumental!